Luca. Last time, Pixar amazed audiences with one of their greatest and most thought-provoking animated features, Soul. And considering the legacy of the studio, having that title is quite an accomplishment. However, I'm sure it was still a lot to take in by experiencing this feature-length philosophical theory on the meaning of life. Which is why, for their next film, Pixar is taking you on a little vacation to the Italian Riviera, where you can enjoy the view, have some of their finest cuisine, and meet some peculiar sea monsters trying not to get killed. You know, for some reason, now it no longer sounds like the typical vacation where you can just relax. But either way, this little trip is brought to us by a new director at the studio named Enrico Casarosa, a Pixar veteran who climbed up the ranks to get to that directorial position, who most notably created the Oscar-nominated short La Luna. And considering that he was born and raised from Italy, he's not just bringing you to his home country. He's presenting you his childhood in a way that only his team at Pixar could deliver. So now that the movie is emerging out of the water, will we be throwing our bravos and bravissimos at the film? Or will we be throwing our harpoons instead? Let's find out. The story. At first glance, this looks like it could be your typical fish out of water story, where the protagonist discovers our world and our lifestyle, since it is all new to him. And there is some truth to it. I mean, Luca is technically a fish, and he's mostly out of the water. So can you really blame it for literally being that kind of story? Anyways, if there is one thing that this movie is about more than the sea monsters and living in the Italian Riviera, it's about freedom, where Luca wants to escape his boring life hiding from the humans and go travel the world to see what is beyond the waters. But in order to capture that dream of freedom, he must first get his hands on a Vespa. And the quickest solution to get one is by winning the prize money from the triathlon Porto Rosso race. I'll start by getting the biggest problem out of the way. Conceptually, this is a pretty weak story. A lot of these plot points are unoriginal and feel like they've been commonly recycled from other animated family films, like the need to explore the outside world despite the parents' refusal, the goal of winning the competition that the characters have to continuously train for, the friendship that has its ups and downs, and especially the need to hide the lead's supernatural identity. Not only do these common tropes feel overused and dilute the writing, they also make the story predictable, where the familiarity of these moments makes it easy to guess the outcomes right when they start to establish them. However, that is only when analyzing the concepts alone. When it comes to the execution, that is when the team at Pixar and the directing of Casarosa make the most out of what they were given to make the experience worthwhile. In an animation perspective, what helps make the story engaging is how it adopted the sensibilities of a Studio Ghibli film. It's no secret that the people at Pixar are huge Studio Ghibli fans, especially Enrico Casarosa. I mean, the town is called Porto Rosso. With a reference like that, I'm surprised they didn't go with Portotoro. But more than any other mainstream American animated film, this one shares the most similarities to the Studio Ghibli storytelling by placing its importance towards the heart of the characters, how they feel as they discover their new environment and bond with others, all while set in a European town with a supernatural touch to make things interesting. In a way, it's a bit like Kiki's Delivery Service, only with sea monsters instead of witches. And because it's so focused on the characters and what they want in life, it encourages its audience to feel emotionally invested to see the kids achieve their goals, rather it be Luca and Alberto getting the Vespa or Giulia winning the race. It takes its time to explain why they mean so much to them, and also presenting that failing to do so means returning to a melancholy life, or maybe even death. So the engagement is from the high risk for the sake of having a better life for the leads. The odds may be against them, but it's all the better to see them succeed. It's not Pixar's most original story, but it still has that emotional core to make it as enjoyable as one. The animation. While this is not the type of film that takes you to a magical place or enhances our world with a fully extraordinary component, the movie does make the most out of taking its audience to a little corner of Italy, to capture the spirit of a town by the seashore with its own culture and its own citizens working together to make their community thrive. Among all the elements in the animation, it's the backgrounds that gives this movie its visual identity. The way that it crafted Porto Rosso to be as authentic as possible in order to give the town full of life and paying attention to detail of the ways that it has its own traditions and giving its own history as a place where sea monsters are considered their natural enemy. Not to mention how the details make it unapologetically Italian, complete with the architecture meant to accustom the hillside of the Riviera and even include ruins of old castles from days past.
We can go anywhere, do anything. We just gotta stick together.
There are also times when the movie looks like a landscape painting, especially with the way it features bright and natural colors. But that painterly-like feeling and the vibrance of the colors get a major boost whenever Luca is in a dream sequence to highlight his feelings of wanting freedom. Even when going underwater, as Pixar put in what they know from working on the Finding Nemo movies to bring the ocean to life, they also turn it into an aquatic civilization similar to ours, where the sea monsters are more like farmers to harvest food and protect themselves from any humans wanting to get rid of them. As for the characters, the animators decided to try something different than what they usually do at the studio, going for a cartoonier and rounder design. In a way, they tried to do something similar to what they did in The Good Dinosaur. However, I'd say the designs work better here than in that film, considering how this movie features more humans and the tone takes itself a little less seriously than in Dinosaur, so it has a chance to make better use out of the look. And as their movements are still more down-to-earth and even a little playful, especially during the moments when Luca and Alberto get a chance to swim around, the highlights of those are the transformations of the sea monsters. The way they get on land and their scales and fins are turned into skin and hair, even taking advantage of that mechanic to partially turn back into a sea monster whenever they get wet. Of course, it was expected for the visuals to be great, but this time, it's great in the way that it is immersive, and even with all the sea monsters, that is what makes the animation feel real. The characters. As I've said before, while a lot of the concepts are unoriginal, what makes up for that lack of creativity there is the heart of the film, thanks to the help of the execution, especially from the characters. Because the filmmakers prioritize their aspirations and have them lead the narrative, the movie is as strong as it is because the cast is so well crafted. On top of having great voice actors delivering an effective performance that really made their personalities memorable. But among all those from land and sea, it is the title character that stands out the most. At first, Luca seems like the typical Ariel type character, the kind that wonders what would he give if he could live out of these waters. The comparison doesn't help either when he is a protagonist that goes from being a supernatural aquatic creature to a human. But as he escapes his watery home and explores around Porto Rosso, that's when his coming-of-age moment truly begins as he gradually discovers what he wants in life. Thanks to the aid of Alberto and Giulia, he learns that the world is far bigger than he can possibly imagine and wants to know more and see it for all of its glory.
Air! The sky, clouds, the sun. Whoa, don't look at it. Just kidding. Definitely look at it.
That is why his dream is for freedom, to not be stuck in the ocean and experience life in ways that he never thought possible, which is harder to achieve than he may think. That is where the movie's intensity comes into play, as there are a lot of obstacles Luca has to avoid in order to achieve his freedom, like getting wet in a town that's ready to kill sea monsters on sight, and his parents trying to bring him back to his old concealed life. By his side, there is Alberto, the self-proclaimed human expert that is more charismatic than knowledgeable. He's the free spirit type that teams up with Luca as his best buddy to see the world. But there's just one thing that I think the feature forgot to establish. I won't say any spoilers, but it's safe to say that there will be times when the friendship will go sour. But I don't think there was ever a moment when the movie clarifies why Alberto gets upset with Luca. Sure, there was that one part near the climax that revealed a bit of his background, but that didn't necessarily answer much about their changing dynamic. It just felt like the tone of their friendship shifted because he's a fun character, sure, but I still can't help but ask at times, what's his problem? I know that there is that theory about Alberto having a crush on Luca, and it is a credible one, but the problem is that it's just a theory and nothing official that the movie mentioned. Then there is Julia, the outcast of the town that befriends the boys to help strengthen the film's theme of friendship as the human friend and the most determined to win the race, all while living with her tough yet soft-hearted father, Massimo. Speaking of which, there is also Luca's parents, Daniela and Lorenzo, whose worrisome nature makes them determined to bring back their son so that he could be safe. They are also the comic reliefs that actually supply some well-needed and good comedy to add that extra fun in the movie. And then there's Ercole, the hotshot bully of the town and the reigning champion of the Porto Rosso race for several years, even if he's a little too old for it. In a way, he is more the typical bully archetype, complete with goons. But then again, with his comedically selfish nature and ready to take the lead down by any means necessary, it's at least nice to see an actual straightforward villain in a Disney or Pixar film. Seriously, it's been a long time since we've had a real one.
Teacher, I'm delighted to meet you, number one. And number two, I love your stylish clothes. Where did you get them? A dead body? Dead body? I'm kidding.
This is what defines a character-driven movie. They're the ones responsible for carrying the storyline, the tone, and the heart to give a unique feeling that only their feature could deliver. And the characters here succeeded in doing exactly that for theirs. I'm honestly a little hesitant to call this another Pixar masterpiece, but that won't stop me from calling this a great film. Luca is an absolutely charming animated feature that takes audiences to an unforgettably touching trip to Italy. It may not be Pixar's most original picture with some weak concepts and a predictable story, but it more than makes up for it with beautifully immersive animation, a powerful emotional core, and a heartfelt cast of characters that all deliver an engagingly touching experience. This movie is definitely worth watching, especially if you are in the mood for something that is more emotional than just always trying to be funny. Or better yet, with its theme of friendship, it's the kind of movie that can be more enjoyable when you share the experience with friends. Again, it's not Pixar's best, but it still doesn't change that I had a great time watching this and find myself so emotionally invested in Luca's adventure, and that is why I'm giving this the Animat seal of approval.
Whoa, don't look at it. Just kidding. Definitely look at it.